Hey, good evening. Let's see. So, okay. Whoa, nasty. This is a common, I feel like a lot of people misread this or misuse this verse. I think it's interesting. It's something I wanted to go over. And this is what it says. Then, this is Jesus' first temptation after he's baptized and calls the disciples, and God confirms him at his baptism. He reads in the synagogue, all that stuff, right? Or maybe that's after this, but then Jesus was led up by the Spirit into the wilderness to be tempted by the devil. And when he had fasted 40 days and 40 nights, afterward, he was hungry. Now, when the tempter came to him and said, "If you're the Son of God, command that these stones become bread." And Jesus answered the devil, "It is written," and he quotes, "Man shall not live by bread alone, but every word that proceeds from the mouth of God." Now, Jesus is the living manna that comes down out of heaven. He hasn't given the meal yet. This is very early in his ministry. He's all alone talking to the devil, and he's quoting this verse. Something people will say is, well, the devil was tempting him to break his fast. No, it doesn't say that. Well, if Jesus had fallen to the temptation here of Satan, what would he have failed to do that made him fail his mission? Break a fast? That's not what the text says. Look at that. Look what I highlighted here. And when he had fasted, past tense, 40 days and 40 nights, afterward, he was hungry. Now, when the tempter came to him, he said. So notice three things here. The fast was over. He completed the fast. And he was hungry. Is there anything wrong with being hungry or needing to eat after a 40-day fast? So the tempter tempts him by saying, if you're the Son of God, make these stones into bread. Has nothing to do with breaking the fast, I contend. And by the way, is there anything wrong with eating after you're finished with your fast? Is it merely that if the devil said, say Jesus was hungry because it was meal time, and the devil said, eat food, and he was going to eat food because it's dinner time. Would he fail, or would he fall to the devil's temptation when he's hungry and is supposed to eat because humans have to eat? Is eating a sin just because if you're walking down the street and the devil says, take another step, and you're already walking, would you be falling to a temptation? No. I usually eat after I fast. Don't you? So what's the temptation here? It's not simply doing what the devil said, because, blink your eyes. Oh, gotcha. I don't think so, right? Think about get what I'm saying? So then people kind of think, well, he was tempting him. It's someone tempting him to break the fast because he's completing the thing the Israelites failed to do in this sort of, no, I don't think so. It doesn't really make sense. The text is clear. Had fasted 40 days and 40 nights. Afterward, he was hungry. Nothing wrong with that. It's normal. He needs to eat. He's supposed to eat. Now, after that, next thing, that's what now means. When the tempter came to him, after the fast was over, it indicates that he's hungry. There's nothing wrong with being hungry. The fast has been completed. Then the devil comes to him and demands him to command stones into bread. Is there anything wrong with eating food? Now, think about this. Why in the world is Jesus quoting this verse? Think about that. Is Jesus, what is the temptation? For him to make food to eat when he needs to eat, and it's okay to eat. Am I right? Is it okay to eat after you're done fasting and you're hungry and you need to eat food to live? Nothing wrong with that. The temptation is for him to literally make food out of stones. So he's tempting him in some sense. The temptation in some way is him to turn stones into bread. Eating bread is not bad. Jesus needs to eat, and he's hungry. And the reply Satan gives to Jesus, or the reply Jesus gives to Satan, who's trying to get him to eat food, which is perfectly fine to eat food when you're hungry and you need to eat. And Jesus says, man doesn't live on bread alone, but every word that proceeds from the mouth of God. Is Jesus, the temptation is literal eating food. And then is Jesus saying, quoting this verse to say, oh, you don't have to eat. You can just read the Bible and it's food. Why is this answering the devil's temptation, which is to make literal food? And no one ever thinks about that. I never hear anybody talk about this. If you actually stop and think about it, this is like really weird. What is going on here? I'll tell you, there's only one answer that really makes sense, I think. And here's my answer to it. What was the devil tempting him to do? What would he have done that would have made him falling prey to fail his mission? What was his mission? His mission was to become incarnated and to show us how to live for God and to trust by faith in God to empower us. Jesus only ever used he is God incarnate, and that's available to him at all times. But his mission was to live as an authentic human being. And he did. And guess what? If he had used his power to serve himself, to make food when a normal man wouldn't be able to do it, he would have been using his divine power to serve himself. But he didn't, did he? He trusted by faith in the Father to strengthen him. The failure here is for him to rely on his own power, his own innate divine power, his divinity, to serve himself. But Jesus never served himself. He only used his divine power and did miracles to serve, to save, and to heal. The people will use this for all kinds of weird things to justify their traditions and their doctrines. But the temptation here, I believe, is that Jesus was tempted to prove himself as the Son of God by using his divine power to service himself, and he didn't do that. Why? Because he lived an authentic human life as an authentic human. And he was in constant communion with his Father and trusted in the Word. It is written. He trusted the Word of God. He trusted in his Father to strengthen him as an authentic human. The failure here would have been to use his divine power to serve himself. And that's what our call is. Our call is to, by faith, trust in God to empower us to walk in the Spirit. And Jesus did it perfectly. See, we're often tempted to do things our own way and to rely on our own power and not God. And that Jesus could have been tempted more strongly than after a 40-day fast to serve himself with his divine power, and he didn't do that because he took on what we are and accomplished without sin what we don't accomplish to save us and to redeem our body and humanity by becoming authentically human and relying on a relationship with the Father through the Spirit. And he didn't fail, but we do. And so he gives us grace, and he suffered as we do. I don't think Jesus is in constant communion with the Father throughout his whole ministry and life. Do you really think he was tempted to commit adultery or to lie and steal after realizing who he was in perfect communion with the Father at all times? No, Jesus' temptation was to rely on his own innate power apart from God. But he always trusted on the Father and lived an authentic human life and did what we're unable to do to save us. Jesus wasn't tempted to commit adultery, I believe. I don't think that makes any sense because he actually was in communion. If we were in perfect communion at all times by faith with God, would we sin? No. That's how Jesus was tempted. He was tempted to rely on his own innate power, which is available to him. How much harder was it for Jesus to not do that, to not rely on that? I believe that's how Jesus was tempted in every way we are, to the extent that we are. And he had it would have been so much easier for him to rely on his own innate power that was available to him, but he didn't do that. He indeed led an authentic human life and succeeded where we fail. So God bless.